Transplanting with Kathy Chenier and Brenda Herring. Welcome! Container-grown plants require occasional repotting to keep them healthy. We'll look at when to repot your plant and tips on how to repot your plant. Repotting plants may seem like a simple task, but there's always a risk that your plant may not do well after repotting. Repotting should not be done too frequently. Plants typically need repotting every 12 to 18 months, depending on how actively they are growing. When is it time to transplant?
Good day, my name is Kathy Chenier. I'm a volunteer at the Regina Garden Association. We're going to discuss repotting today. Okay, the first one would be roots coming out through the drain holes, which indicates the plant is root bound. So on this one here, you'll see there's tiny little roots already popping out of here. And there's also roots coming out of this one. This is the other one. Okay, root ball is compact, massive roots tangled around the pot with hardly any space for roots to grow further. The second one is roots are matted near the soil, surface pushing the plant up out of the soil. So here you'll notice all the roots here that are in here, they're above the soil because it's pushing the plant up out of the soil. Okay. The next one is water runs through the pot and comes out of the drain hole quickly because there is not enough soil left to catch the moisture. So in this case, this is a root-bound plant. Oh. But let's see if it's still dry in spots because it's so root-bound. Another one is that the plant is extremely top-heavy, which is it's overflowing the pot, and it looks like it might burst out of its pot. Okay, the next one is the plant is experiencing slower than normal growth, especially during the growing season. And this plant here is showing very small leaves, so it should be repotted so it gets new nutrients out of the soil.
Plants give these signals because they're not able to draw enough nutrients and moisture from the roots and soil. Repotting is needed to change the potting mix for new nutrients, or because it's root-bound. Roots tightly packed in a pot will not take up nutrients efficiently. If your plant is experiencing some of these signs, it's likely a good time to repot your plant. A plant ready for repotting should slide out with the soil in one piece. If much of the soil falls free of the roots, the plant may not need repotting. Transplanting.
So we'll continue on with the steps for repotting. It helps to water the root ball thoroughly in advance. To remove the root ball, gently squeeze around the sides of your pot to loosen up the roots and the soil. Then gently put your hand on the top of the soil and pull gently to remove the pot. So as you can see, this is quite root bound with the circles going around, so you have trouble getting your pot out. You can always tap the side of your pot on something hard, and it will loosen your pot.
Ah, there you go.
You can also use a knife if you still can't get it out. You can use a knife between the pot and the root ball and go around the pot, and this will also loosen it out if you really have a hard time. So once you get it out of the pot, you should inspect the roots for pests. Root bounding, which is what this is because it's going around in circles. And also to make sure your roots are white or light colored, because black or dark colored or foul smelling roots are usually signs of root rot or fungal disease, and they should be removed before you repot. So to promote good nutrition absorption, loosen the plant ball gently. So this is pretty root bound, so I'll try and loosen as much of the soil as I can just by squeezing and slowly massaging it try and get as much dirt as we can out of here. And you may, because this is so root bound, you may have to remove some of the roots if you can't get them loose. You start at the bottom here and just kind of use your fingers to try and loosen them up. You may lose some roots, but when they're root bound like this, there's not much you can do about it. That's one of the reasons that it's a good thing to have your soil wet. It's easier to get it off the roots. So as you keep on massaging it and removing it, and that this slowly works loose, and you can get more and more dirt out. You should at least try and get a third of the root of the soil off so you can replenish it with fresh soil. But sometimes that's pretty hard to do. Or you may have to soak it for a while in water to loosen up the soil even more. In this case, that might be something we'll have to do, but I'll keep working on it here. If it's too packed, you may have to use some scissors or pruners and prune some of the excess roots off. By removing this promotes, speeds up the growth and branching of the new roots into the soil. So the more you can loosen and the fine roots, it doesn't matter if you lose them as long as you keep the big, healthy, white, thick roots.
Okay.
These little tiny roots won't hurt it if you lose some of those. I think I've got probably a third of the soil out of here. I think that's pretty good. So now the size of the pot should be at least 2 inches, but no bigger, because what happens if you have a bigger pot, more than 2 inches, you'll have a big pot with lots of soil and a small plant, and it'll get overwatered. You'll have a tendency to overwater it because there's so much soil there. So it's better to keep a smaller pot. It also, the plant will grow better, because if you put it in too big of a pot, it'll try and fill that space up with roots, so your plant will quit growing. So now I put about a quarter of the pot with soil, fresh soil, that's suitable for the plant. That's another thing. You have to, when you're repotting a plant, you should make sure you've got the correct soil mixture for that plant, because different plants require different soil. And so you have to get research and find out what soil the plant likes. If it requires more perlite or bark or orchid mix, it's all different kinds of soil that these plants like. So I think I could remove some of these roots here. Now you spread the roots out best you can, and make sure there's no air pockets. You spread the roots out, kind of spread them out to the bottom of the pot, and try and remove any air pockets that might be in the soil. And then try and fill up the rest of the pot. Go around on all sides and then push the soil down to remove the air pockets. And make sure you get all the roots in there. Now we, at the conservatory, we bury the pots. So I like to try and plant the plant at the same depth as it was planted before. So I like to have the plant right up to the top of the pot. But normally, if it's a house plant, you would leave a lip so that you could water it. But because we bury our pots so that the pot is not showing, we need to make sure that our plant is up on the very rim, like up to the very top of the pot. Because otherwise what happens when you bury it, it gets buried too deep. You end up having soil up here which will kill the plant because it needs to be potted, or the dirt needs to be the same height as the plant that it was originally in. So you don't want to bury it any farther down than the way it was in the first place, because it'll root the stems on the plant, especially a fleshy plant. So that's pretty much it. Make sure you give it a good watering after you transplant a pot, and if you can, try and keep it, out of the sun for a day or two until it gets adjusted to the repotting, because it takes a while for the plant to readjust its roots. And it's best to kind of keep it in the shade for a day or two until it can start taking up water again. So I hope this helps with your repotting when you decide to do some. Thank you.